podcasting.
We did, yeah.
I don't know if I know him because I'm still listening to Ted Nugent and New Journey. I'm still stuck in the 70s. I always feel bad when Rich Hooper comes on the show and he's all this gospel Christian music. I like Led Zeppelin. Anyway, so.
Do you want to name drop, Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Go ahead.
Who's the actor for Bible Man?
Willie Ames.
Willie Ames.
From Eight is Enough.
Yep. Met Willie Ames. Kelly Copeland, Kenneth Copeland's daughter.
Uh-huh.
A couple other kind of big names. It was fun.
Nice.
I guess. But Willie Ames is big star, huh? All right, anyway.
He's the one I remembered.
Okay, well. Anyway, we got Sam Ross here from First Baptist, and we're going to talk not so much just about First Baptist, but what's going on in the spiritual world in America as a whole, because I was reading a couple of articles. Plus, coincidentally enough, I taught this in class today about the growing number of non-affiliated people, the nuns, not the NUS, but not the ones that rack you with the ruler over the knuckles, but NONES, right? The nuns, and what impact it's having on our country, and what we're trying to do about it. Not just at First Baptist, but at churches in general, because I'm sure you have connections with other churches, and I bet this has come up before.
Oh yeah.
This is a conversation we all have, but it does have an impact on our society. And I did have a respondent about how difficult it is to square this circle when you have people that sit in the pew on Sunday, put trash on Facebook on Monday, and so we need to talk about that too. I don't want him. His name's Matt Fanning. He put it in there, and I want him to be heard, so to speak. But before we get on to these high-level discussions, let's talk about our sponsors. Our friends over at Our Place was there yesterday. We used to do the breakfast on Thursdays, but because of my schedule and a couple other guys' schedule, we now moved that bi-weekly breakfast to Monday. So we're still there for you, Sam, if you want to get up early. You're probably already up by then.
I'm up pretty early.
Yeah.
I take the kids to school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, when I was in my day, they walked, but whatever. Yeah.
They're not allowed to walk to school anymore. At least where we live, they can't cross. They have to cross 174 if they want to go to school, and they don't want them to do that.
Who's they? Kelsey?
No, the school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I was thinking my Mama Ross might have something to say about that. But anyway, back to Our Place. The breakfast is great as always. In the conversation, we were talking about politics, which we're not going to introduce much into this. We are in the primary early voting season, and I would encourage y'all to do that. But
there's 3 days left.
Yeah, in early voting. Yeah, and then next Tuesday is the main vote. And the way Texas does their voting these days, the majority of votes will be cast by Friday or Saturday, I think. No, it's Friday. It's 72 hours, so it'd be Friday afternoon. And so, it's interesting because we haven't had an election where the majority of votes have been cast on Election Day since about 2014. Okay, anyway, back to Our Place, since Otto's paying for this. Thank you, Otto. Also for Gina's Pizza, always great pizza. I think tonight is chess night, and then you have bingo night tomorrow night, and then you have karaoke night Wednesday. And then, of course, Sunday nights they have their live music. I believe it's time for our friend Susie Morgan and her husband Woodrow to be playing again on Sunday night. They usually open the month up, and, they're local legends around here, big-time stars. So there you go. So check them out on Sunday night. Also, my friend John Williams of Old Pro Roofing, 817-734-2756. I know people think it's never going to rain again. I never have to worry about my roof again. It's going to rain again sooner or later.
It's going to hail pretty soon too.
You think so?
Well, it's a season.
It's a season,
yeah,
right. And
spring.
Here's the thing. We had a big hailstorm March 8th of last year. If you waited until, say, March 15th this year to have John look at it, and he says, you got some hail damage, the insurance companies won't cover it. And that's not just one insurance company. They all won't cover it because it's the rules they got in place in Texas. You have to report your damage within a year. So if you think you have any hail damage from last year's storms last spring, you better look at it now so you can have John come out there. Again, it's 817-734-2756. He's part of our BNI group, and he and I were talking about this Saturday at the showcase. And he says he gets calls like this all the time where people are having problems with the insurance company because of a hailstorm of 18 months ago. and they're not getting it reimbursed. So have John come take a look at it. And No Pro is local folks. This isn't Chuck in a truck. These guys are about a block from City Hall. They've been here for about 25 years. So, you have Corey Aiken over there. So you don't need to go out of town. You got Pro here. Same thing with Jeff Kelly. You don't need to have somebody else from outside the town sell you real estate. Get somebody who knows what he's talking about with Jeff Kelly. 817-781-0546 or Jeff at jeffkellyrealty.com with the Weathington agency here in town. So they know the real estate market. They know what you're looking for. You hear all this stuff in the news about home buying. Is it, increasing, decreasing, this, that, and the other. Look, you need somebody who knows what they're talking about. Hold your hand. Give you a tissue if you need one. I don't know. But still, you need to have somebody out there that knows what they're doing instead of having, just trying to do it on your own. So call Jeff Kelly again, 817-781-0546. Also, we're introducing a new sponsor. This gentleman, Rod Lewis, was on about 2 weeks ago today, and the Burleson News Express, and it's coming out every week. I believe every Wednesday is when the new issue comes out, and it's in about 24 places now. When he first started this, there's about 5 places you could pick one up now, but he's been hustling pretty good, and he's got it, Daydream Coffee, it's at Gina's Pizza, it's at the library, it's at the senior center, it's in numerous little retail outlets all over, and it's free right now. He's looking for advertisers, as we all are, but he'll be very much interested in your story as well. And I would say to many of the nonprofits, he needs content, and that's a good way to get your word out. So if you have a big fundraiser coming up, you have a big event, if you just want some, if you want some attention to your program, give him a holler. And the number's on the paper, also his email address. It looks something like this. This is an older copy about 2 weeks ago, so I don't know what the new copy looks like now. You'll see my ad in it as well, so you'll be very prominently displayed right next to Rich Hooper's. So people will say, Rich Hooper, and that other guy. Anyway, so Burleson City Employee of the Year. See, I miss the Burleson Star.
Yeah, same.
I was on a first-name basis with their main reporter because I did student council and all that business, and so there was a lot of content from that. And then, what the teachers would do every Thursday? Get the arrest reports and put them in the library on the table or make a copy. So we go through, I know this guy. I knew
he's
it.
a student.
Yeah, he's a student. I knew it. I'm surprised that she got caught, and all this other stuff. It was kind of like a game with us. Teachers can be mean.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Oh, yeah. When we get just behind closed doors. Anyway, back to the matter. Let's talk about, what are we going to talk about first?
I'm fine to talk about whatever. I do want to apologize that I'm stuffy today. You can probably hear that in my voice.
Yeah.
I'm doing the best I can. I have a lemon ginger tea that's helping soothe a little bit. But if I have some sniffles, I apologize.
See, that's the difficulty being part of the Baptist clergy. Several really good remedies are off limits to you.
Such as?
Bourbon helps.
Yeah.
It'll knock a hole right through it, but still, you know how it is. But anyway, let's talk about what Matt Fanning had to say.
I would like to talk about that.
All right. Yeah. I'm not going to read it word for word. I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't have the phone in front of me. But his point was, how do people sit in church on Sunday and say amen and put on this facade, if you will, of righteousness, and then during the week they're just hateful to people on Facebook, whether groups of people, in general or specifically towards people. And you and I both know this happens. Yeah. Some of the criticism that our city leaders get, if they're criticizing policy, okay, that's part of the game, right? But you can express those without making it personal or hateful.
Mm-hmm.
How do you address that issue as a member of the church staff, and also how are we addressing it as a church?
Yeah, I mean, for anybody who is a believer in Jesus, I think that we need to pay careful attention to the words we say and the words that we write. Life and death lie in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Mm-hmm. And people who speak life are people that generally, I think, represent the church well, and those who are speaking death are not. And it's heartbreaking when you see it, especially whenever it's somebody that you know that you're friends with who maybe in person they've never uttered a bad word against anybody, but then you see the way that they speak online. It's like that's not the person that I know. That's not the person that I'm friends with, and they would never say that. There's a lot that contribute to that. I mean, I think people see that whenever they are polarizing online, that is the post that gets more attention, and so there's almost an incentive online to be
very much
polarizing.
So. But when I started this show about 4 or 5 years ago, well, it started September 19. So what is that, 6+ years? Yeah. I had a lot more comments and positive ones too. But, I'd get some cheap shots or whatever else. But the cheap shots towards me wasn't as bad as the cheap shots that they were doing towards the others.
Yeah.
Other commentators on the post, they'd say that whatever the crap they want to say about me, whatever, great. But it really bothered me when somebody would say, well, I disagree, but, and they'd be nice about it. Or they'd be, make a legitimate point, or they'd be respectful.
Yeah.
And then to get some other respondent there that would just trash them. And I had to start blocking people off the Facebook, not because they were mean to me, but because they were mean to other respondents in town. And what the downside of all this is, what it has done is it's not so much that it's dropped the number of Facebook respondents, okay, that it is what it is, but it's made people more and more reluctant to venture an opinion in good faith.
Yeah.
And I just it really bothered me, because I remember, several times when I would say something either politically oriented or whatever else, and somebody would say, yeah, that's right, or that's wrong, because, and again, they were done it with respect. It's fine.
Yeah.
And then somebody would swoop in on the conversation and just blast them. And sometimes I knew those people, or I knew of them, and I knew that they saw themselves as devout Christians, yet this is how they conduct themselves in public like that. So Fanning has a point.
It does.
And it's unfortunate that kind of not only thing exists, but it does, for many people, negatively color the gospel.
It does.
So what do we do about it?
Well, I think it's something that it needs to be addressed at all levels of leadership. I mean, right now, I don't think we have the best example in the highest seats of leadership in our country.
Oh, very tactfully put, yes.
Yeah. And the behavior from online, from not just our highest seat of power right now, but even locally and statewide, there seems to be an incentive in our political atmosphere to run a campaign based on not what you're for, but the things that you're against.
Oh yeah, I could think of several right now that are on that primary ballot. That I'm seeing the advertisements now. But see, it's not so much them. Tallarico and Crockett and Paxton, Conan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's on them. But it's just the idea that this is effective and that people of faith are susceptible to this.
Yeah,
and they're willing to overlook just really what these people are saying and how they're saying it, because they vote right on certain issues. And I'll make my political point. I incorporate a great deal about what that person is before I vote for them. And I hate it when, either party puts somebody up there that just is egregious in this area, but because they voted right on this one issue, I feel obligated to vote for them. No more. I'm not voting for somebody just because they voted right on one issue. But that's just me. It bothers me is that when you talked about trash level in our public life, that people that sit in a pew every day are on board with it because they're slamming the right people, so to speak. And that goes for both sides. And I just, that's not a good development.
Yeah. I think we need to ask ourselves who we allow to influence the way we think and the way that we talk. I mean, you even see some of that behavior from church leaders today who have figured out kind of how to game the system online to kind of say things in such a way to where they're not crossing a line necessarily, but they're still sparking a little bit of outrage just based on the way that they will bring up a topic and kind of weasel their way around not saying something that's outright, sinful, but Yeah, I think that one of the best things we can apply to ourselves is to look at the fact that we have to draw a circle around ourselves. Say, like, I can control what I say, I can control what I do, and I'm not going to let the way other people speak online influence the way that I speak, whether negatively or positively.
Right.
And I think it'd be wise to even shut out some of that influential talk that's happening from people that are intentionally sparking outrage. Trying to shut that out even whenever you're trying to post something. It can influence you.
Well, I am definitely not watching the State of the Union address tonight. I never do, because it's just a egregious abuse, both parties. I'm not talking about Trump specifically. I mean, Biden, Obama did too. It was just a goofy pep rally where half the crowd cheers, half the crowd boos for nothing. All right. And, the Constitution says the government, or the president, has to communicate at least once a year the State of the Union to Congress. Well, for the first 60, no more than that, first 120 years, we did it by letter. And then Wilson decided to do it in person. And then we started on radio and then television. And now it's degenerated into this
spectacle,
grotesque spectacle. And, people that, I don't know. It's like watching a very bad car crash over and over again. I'm going to watch Baylor basketball tonight. We're going to get our butts handed by Arizona, but I'd rather watch that car crash. So,
yeah,
Arizona's going to beat us like we stole their milk money, but I'd rather watch that beating than, 20-minute speech that lasts 2 hours. But I hope as a church, obviously as an institution would be opposed to that, but I hope also as leaders of the church, and I include myself that, I guess, as a Sunday school teacher, whatever, that we make sure that our public responses reflect and honor Christ as opposed to venting our spleen.
One thing that a lot of churches have now are online policies for conduct. So that's for staff members, that's for high-level volunteers, for leadership boards, and they will be included in either like a bylaws or like just a signed form that people have to fill out whenever they are entering into those levels of leadership, that they will conduct themselves online in a way that it is representative of Christ.
Well, I would hope also, even if, like I said, I share Sunday school duties with Dan Gardner, I would hope that if I put something trashy, my brothers in the church would say, hey, you went too far.
Yeah.
It's not just the leadership that holds us accountable. It's also the members of the church. If I put something smutty or stupid or hateful on there, I hope Dan would say, hey, that's not reflective of who we are. Yeah. It's not reflective of who Christ is. And so when it comes to accountability, well, first of all, we can't just rely on Chris Wigley or other pastors to do it for us, or you or Daniel or the rest of the crowd.
Right.
We got to do it. And I'm not saying we have to police Facebook and say, well, and whatnot. But I'm just saying, if you see a brother that has posted something that to be wrong, hurtful,
that's a Matthew 18.
Yeah,
go to them in person.
Yeah, say, hey, brother, this is some good. And if they continue, they take a couple and give them a beating. Is that what they do? No.
Tell them their offense in front of witnesses. So,
okay,
hey, we all saw this. Yeah.
I'm just kidding, but I'm just saying it's if I post something like, I like this person and I'm voting for them, or voting for her, that's legit. Okay, that's no big deal. If I say I'm not voting for this guy because he's blah 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 blah, and I make all these insulting things, I think people should say, hey, make your better argument than that.
Yeah.
Or if I forward or push something that's suggestive or whatever else, I want my brothers to say, hey, this isn't what we're about.
Yeah.
And so for Matt, I would say, we don't have an answer for you. We don't have an answer for, in a sense that, because we're not going to police ourselves in the sense that we're going to impose certain penalties and whatnot. But ultimately, they're responsible for their conduct and they're answerable to God for it.
Yeah.
You may delete a Facebook post, but God already saw it. So
even if you've already thought it.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Our friend Aaron Ash from Cleveland says hello, and so he's a very faithful listener.
Hi, Aaron.
So another thing that's concerned is the growing, and has been for a while, is the growing connections between issues of faith and politics, people of faith and politics. Now, let's be very clear what I'm saying. People of faith need to be involved in politics, but they need to be showing the faith as more than they need to be showing their Democrat or Republican leanings. You don't follow what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it's if they want to, I fully believe the Christians have a role in our society politically. It's just when they start using that faith or the scripture or other aspects of it as not as a basis for their thinking, but as a hammer against their opponents.
Yeah.
That's a totally different thing. And that's what we've been seeing a lot of that in the last decade or so on both sides.
Yeah.
But primarily the Christian nationalist movement, which concerns me greatly. All right. Now, you and Josh probably have a better definition of Christian nationalism because that's a term that came up really in y'all's generation or used more. How do you define it?
I mean, there's better definitions than what I'll give you.
Well, Josh knows. He knows all. Do you know?
Give me a second.
You got to look. Looking up Wikipedia and nothing like that.
Yeah. Well, you can define nationalism first, but I mean, whenever I've heard Christian nationalism, I listen to people who are Christian nationalists. It's a marker that identifies somebody who wants Christianity to have a advantage over others, and so it's a way of wanting to steer the country into a more friendly political, atmosphere that favors Christianity over other religions.
Well, friendly isn't the word I'd use. It was more mandatory is the word I would think. But what my problem with Christian nationalism is that anytime you use government power to bring about scripturally related values, it fails and it pollutes the values. I mean, and we've seen historically for 2 millennia when the church and the state are one and the same, it's the church that greatly suffers for it. Yeah. And so when I see people that advocate Christian nationalism, I'm not seeing an evangelistic outreach. I'm seeing a government mandate of you will abide by these Christian values. And that really bothers me because you and I and Josh, everybody else abides by Christian values because that's our choice. Mm-hmm. And we encourage everybody to make that choice. That's why we have missionaries and evangelism. Yeah. But to mandate it and to punish those that have other ideas on it, that's where I get really, really worried.
Yep. As a Baptist, we put a lot of emphasis on personal relationship with Jesus.
Exactly.
That is one of the things that is a separator for us from more of your Catholic and not necessarily Presbyterian, but other denominations, is that it's a very, it is your choice to follow Jesus. Mm-hmm. And we won't baptize people until they have made that decision. That's why we don't baptize infants, because we believe that following Jesus is not something that somebody can force you into. It's got to be a decision that you make on your own. You have to be the one that repents of your sins. You have to be the one that comes to realize that Jesus is Lord, and you have to make that confession with your mouth. You have to believe it in your heart. Very biblical belief, and you follow the Roman road. That is exactly what it lays out for us, that you have to be the one that makes that choice. And if that decision is forced on you from anybody, it could be a parent. I mean, if you want to look at the rise of our NONES nuns.
Yes, we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, a lot of that comes from the fact that, my parents forced me to go to church and I didn't enjoy it. They had a bad experience somewhere along the line, and therefore they reject the church. And if you have a state that is mandating a religious faith, or even organizing things in a way that if you are a Christian, you will have a better experience because it'll be advantageous for you to be Christian, because you'll have access to seats of authority. We'll have a religious test in order for you to run for Senate or whatever it is. And you are going to force that upon people, which just diminishes the personalization and that faith becoming part of who you are as a person, and you will completely miss that.
Right, and that's exactly why the church so utterly fails in Europe, because their heritage,
state run,
state run. Well, and the heritage of centuries of abuse by the quote church state establishment has led to the fact that only like 5% of the people in France attend church. And, most of the European states, the church is as dead as Caesar's ghost. And part of that is not because the power of the gospel has lost any kind of authority or quality. It's just that you've now had generations of people that have been basically forced against their will to believe certain things, or else there'll be some sort of punishment involved. And our founding fathers were very aware of this. We talk about the separation of church and state, which the wordage does not occur in the Constitution. To be clear, that came from Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptist pastors, and then later, many years later, was incorporated in a Supreme Court ruling. But basically, they put that wall of separation in there not to protect the state, but to protect the church from being abused. And the founding fathers, let's not kid ourselves. Among that group who wrote the Constitution, there were men of varying faith, some very little, some a lot.
Most of theists.
Theist or whatever, that kind of thing. But they did not want the church to be polluted by the arm of the state. And so this is what's happening now when you try to incorporate, well, this is what the scripture says, and we're going to use government force to make it happen.
Do you know what is in the Constitution?
Me? What is? I would like to think so.
Freedom of religion.
Freedom. Exactly. It's freedom of religious faith, and that also includes maybe, unfortunately, I guess, in a way, freedom from religion.
Yeah.
All right. And I don't like to put it like that, but I don't want to be forced to believe something I know not to be true, and neither do you, and neither does Josh.
I think a good current example of this would be Norway. So they are leading in the medal count, or I guess they have led and are the winners of the medal count for the Winter Olympics.
Sure.
And so I did some little research on them. They are still have a state-run religion, and you actually have a requirement for, I don't remember if they call it a parliament or a senate, but their highest level of representative has to be a member of their state-run church in order to be a part of that. Their weekly church attendance by population is like 4 to 6%.
Right.
And it's almost nothing.
Right, and that's typical of European nations, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that the church is no longer is a force of spiritual authority or spiritual good or spiritual enlightenment, but it's just another arm of the state, no different than any other institution.
You get a lot of people participating in, I don't know if they call them sacraments, I don't remember, but a lot of people are participating in baptism and in weddings and funerals through the church. There's a lot of people that are members of the State Church of Norway, but I mean, they're not a part of a church, if that makes sense. They're not. That's not their community.
No,
it's their place of sacrament or of service or of
that's where you get married and it's where you get buried.
Yes,
and that's about it.
Yeah,
and if you don't claim something else, you are the member of that state church. I saw this in Scotland.
Yeah,
and their church attendance is pretty negligible as well. And this was in the 1980s.
Wow.
When I wasn't maybe 4%, but it wasn't very high.
Yeah.
But the point is that this Christian nationalism bothers me because a lot of people that aren't as acquainted with the gospel as others think that this is what we stand for. This is what Christians are about. If they didn't grow up in church, or if they don't have the same, educational background in the gospel, they didn't go to Sunday school, that kind of thing. They think this is what the gospel really is about, and that's just not true at all.
Yeah.
One of the most profound statements Christ said is to give what to Caesar is Caesar's, and to what God is to God. God's is to God. Well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, there's a famous second century apologist named Justin Martyr. You might have heard of him. Read some of his stuff. Some of his stuff recently. And the argument he was making to the emperor at the time, which the church was facing persecution in Rome, was that Christians make the best Romans. We pay our taxes on time. We go above and beyond to care for those who even hate us. Like, we are not worried about the laws of man because we hold ourselves to a higher standard, because we don't fear judgment of man, because God even judges our thoughts. And so we hold ourselves to this higher standard. We go above and beyond to care for the poor and the needy. And he's basically making this argument that, like, why are you persecuting the people that are making Rome better.
Yeah.
And I think whenever Christians are doing that, whenever we are seeking the welfare of our city, whenever we are caring for the widow and the orphan and caring about justice and meeting the needs of the hungry and clothing those who are naked, that's whenever the church is at its best. And I think that's whenever we have our most persuasive argument.
Exactly.
Like, I think I would love for the church to be able to make that same argument that Justin was making in the 2nd century today. But like that quote, not quote, but the question that Fanning had was like, it's really difficult to make that argument today whenever we have so much hateful rhetoric being tossed around.
Yeah, it is. And I look at our community, and we have a lot of selfless, that's the word I want to use, selfless people working in these nonprofits, Harvest House and Promises and Next Step and Crazy Eights, all you fill in the blank, right?
Oh, yeah.
Some that I'm not even that well
Burleson
aware
Opportunity
of.
Fund.
Yeah, oh, good. I like it.
Yeah, good plug.
And they're doing it, a lot of it because of Christian impulse, because that's what they feel like God has them do. That's what it should be in our politics as well. But for me to say, this is what inspires me, therefore, by God, it's going to inspire you too, or else there's nothing in Scripture that supports that concept. All right? And, Scripture supports the idea of being, submit to authorities and all this. And I'm not saying that, be radical, but, when you have a system where you need the arm of the state to enforce your gospel, then what good is your gospel?
Yeah.
I don't need Doug Wilson. He's from Minnesota. And, a lot of people don't know him, but I've read a little bit about him, and he's part of the Christian nationalist movement. I don't need him to tell me what's going on. I don't need the state of Texas or anybody else. And the state of Texas thinks that if they put up their 10 commandments in the classroom, the kids are going to, quit doing what they're doing, start paying attention, do better in school. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
And what I'm afraid about those kind of things, what 10 commandments in classrooms and all this other stuff, is not that it's not just the church state issues, but it's going to do to our believing community what it's done to European believing communities. They're so surrounded by it, cathedrals and history and all this other stuff, that they ignore it. They just are numb to it.
Well, I mean, the thing that I fear is that, I remember being in middle school, in high school. It wasn't too long ago. It was a while ago. Yeah. But the more that I felt somebody wanted to teach me something, the more resistance that I had towards it, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. I remember you say, no, I don't believe in Keynesianism theory, Mr. Allard. Mr. Wittenberg.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that it?
But it's just that natural tendency to rebel. It's like, man, if they really want me to follow these 10 commandments, and well, actually, no, I don't. Like, the more I feel it's being forced on me, the more resistance that I have.
Well, in Ken Paxton's case, it's the 9 commandments, because the 6th one doesn't count. Yeah. All right. That is a nice political statement there. But that's another thing, is that the people that push this don't live the lives that would qualify them to push this, so to speak. Why don't you straighten up yourself before you tell me about what it's like to be a good Christian? I look at these politicians that, wave the Bible and the flag and all this other stuff, and I say, before you have anything to say to me about the Christian faith, start living it.
Yeah.
Period.
Was it the Oklahoma governor? He was pushing for 10 commandments, and then he got caught watching some inappropriate material.
I don't
in his
know if
office.
it wasn't the governor. No, it wasn't. No, it was another government official. Right. I think it was. I don't want to say who it is, but it wasn't the governor. I know that much.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry.
All right, but because I think I know who it is, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, I don't want to hear about what is and is not the gospel from people who don't live it. And I think that's what Fanning is talking about as well, is that he doesn't want to hear from these people if they're going to be one way Sunday, another day Monday.
Yeah. And it's not, I think the expectation of perfection is unrealistic. Of course.
It's a goal, but when Christ says to be perfect, and say, that's a high bar, Jesus.
Yeah. I think that what would go a long way is that whenever we fail to live up to the standard that Jesus set for us, is that publicly, privately, that we own up to those things.
Yes.
And that we exemplify the nature of Christ by seeking forgiveness and restoration whenever harm has been done. And I think that there is definitely a tendency, especially in the people that have the most outrage online, to hide behind a religiosity and defend their behavior because they are doing it in the name of Christ.
That's, nothing will kill the spirit of people than what we're talking about here, the imposition of this. Because, again, we look at Europe, but, you look at the countries that tried to oppress Christianity, and why did it fail? Because the people still stayed with their beliefs in a lot of cases. Or you look in my era, the Soviet Union and in the Soviet bloc, they tried to oppress Christianity, but they couldn't do it. China today can't do it. There must be something there, right?
Yeah.
And so China, what they do is they have an official church now, an official Catholic church, that they get to pick the cardinals and the priests and whatever else. So people reject it. Because, they just don't, no, thank you, and so we have
anything state run's always going to have some kind of agenda behind it,
and not a good one. So that's some of the things that concern me in our public life, is that politically we have confused, political ideology and the Christian faith, and I'm not really just talking about conservatives. The liberals do this as well, and they say that they focus on certain aspects of the gospel, but not others. Both sides do this. The side they focus on fits their political agenda, and the part that doesn't, they discard. And, I've considered myself a conservative, even though some of my colleagues or viewers or respondents think I'm some sort of Democrat, but or some liberal or something like that. But I'm just saying that if we fully embrace the gospel in our politics, then a lot of our social programs would be different. We wouldn't have the opposition to some of the, Medicaid as much. You know what I'm saying?
Probably not.
Yeah, we wouldn't have opposition to some of the more, the programs that support the poor as much. Yeah. And if the liberals were the same way, they would not be so concerned about making sure certain ideologies are taught in the schools, or that, they would be less dogmatic about certain social policies like abortion. All right. So, it is a two-way thing. I just want to make sure that both sides, we recognize, have used the gospel for their own ends.
For sure.
And the part they don't like, they just, never mind that part.
Yeah. There's definitely some cognitive dissonance.
That's the word. There you go. I like that.
And how we interpret the gospel. I mean, even in the way that we read scripture, there's certain verses that we will give more weight to than others. And like in the Baptist world, like there are certain verses where it makes it seem like baptism may be required for salvation, and others where it obviously isn't required for salvation. For example, like the thief on the cross was never baptized, and Jesus told him, you'll be with me in paradise today. Then you got 1 Peter, who says like, oh, by baptism you are saved. And it's like, well, how do we reconcile those? And we just give weight to different things.
Well, on a theological point, was Peter saying physical immersion, or is he talking about the baptism of the Spirit?
Yeah, it depends on who you ask, because you're going to get a different answer from the Catholics or the Baptists.
Okay, okay, I get you. But
but I'm saying like we read and interpret everything with some kind of a bias. But I've read some good news this morning.
What's that?
I don't know if you know who Morris. What is the name? Fiorin. I can't pronounce his last name. I'm sorry. But he leads the political science program at Stanford. There's no reason for me or you to know who that is.
How to spell his last name?
It's hold on, Fiorina.
Fiorina.
Fiorina. Thank you.
I know. I don't know him personally, obviously, but I've assigned some of his writings in my class.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I was.
Your class included.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Really? Yeah. Well, I was doing so. There's this great resource that I use called the Graphs About Religion. I think it's Ryan Burge is the guy who runs that, and some great modern data on the state of the church. If you're ever interested in that,
I am. That kind of leads us to our next discussion about the nuns.
Yeah,
NES.
Well, this is what he wrote. He said that Americans are closely divided, but not deeply divided. And we are closely divided because many of us are ambivalent and uncertain, and consequently reluctant to make firm commitments to parties, politicians, and policies. We divide evenly in elections or sit them out entirely because we instinctively seek the center while the parties and candidates hang out in the extremes.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was teaching today, and what we teach on Thursday is that our nominating processes and our gerrymandering our districts have divided us politically into these extreme camps where the radicals and on either side, the extremes on either side dominate the process.
Yeah. They dominate the conversation too.
Yeah.
And like it's you can't get away from it. But he's found in his research that America has always been, historically and today, a very centrist.
Exactly right.
And it's the culture war, he says, is almost entirely an elitist phenomenon driven by a small group of activists on the left and right who exert influence for far out of proportion to their numbers.
Exactly right. And one of the things I teach in my class, I don't have the graph with me, it's called the Downs model, but it shows that in the nominating processes, the conservatives become arch conservatives and the liberals become hyper liberals just to get the nomination of their party, because that's who participates in these primaries, and the middle kind of sits it out. And then supposedly they're supposed to move towards the middle during the general election to get other votes, but they don't do that anymore. And what we're getting are these very extreme candidates. I mean, Jasmine Crockett probably is the most extreme Democrat that I still think will be nominated, and same with Ken Paxton for the Republicans. 20 years ago, those kind of candidates never got that kind of traction. Now, one of those two people may be our senator. Is James Talarico or John Cornyn wins, fine. But I'm just saying that you look at the extremes, they're driving this whole process. And I think for a lot of people, because of that, they drop out of politics, and we can apply that to issues of faith as well, because it's sometimes the people on the extremes that are driving more moderate believers into like, I don't want to be part of this.
Yeah.
The more dogmatic, the more, you saw the Downs model. Look at that. Look at that. And so basically, for those who are looking on, the Downs model shows that, you basically, you get nominated at the extremes and you try to get elected in the middle of the general election. But what's happening is, because our politics are so divisive now, and then we're not getting that middle anymore. And the middle vote, I mean, fewer and fewer people are, they say I'm independent. Fewer people say I'm one or the other. But the truth is they still vote that way.
Yeah, the voting shows that they're...
Yeah, we have less split ticket voting than we ever have. See, this is why Josh gets the big money, because he's just...
He was quick with that.
Yeah,
that's nice.
Well, and anyway, but to apply that to the issues of faith, the nuns feel that way about the issues of faith sometimes, that they're being driven by these very dogmatic interpretations of Scripture, and they just don't want a part of that anymore. Yeah. They don't feel like they need that to be a good Christian. Now, personally, you and I think agree on this, is that church is a vital part of the Christian experience.
Yes.
It's not the only part of it, but it's, if somebody says, I give to the poor, I read the Bible, I have a Bible study I do online, but I don't go to church, it's kind of like, well, you hit a triple, but you need to keep going to get that home run.
Yeah.
All right. And, so why do you think the nuns, so to speak, have increased so much in the last 20 years? I mean, they're now like 28%.
Yeah, it's generation after generation. You see that decline in religiosity, like across the board, not just in Christianity. This is a decline overall in people's religious attendance. You can look at the different churches, different denominations, different religions, and they're all seeing some kind of trend generation to generation, from boomers and silent generation to X and millennials, my generation, and definitely with Gen Z. But it's also the case that a huge majority of millennials and Gen Z were raised in fairly religious households. Parents do want their kids to have some sense of morality, and they will tend to send them to church and to youth group and all that. But you actually see this really interesting trend whenever kids become young adults. A lot of them fade away. They're figuring out things, college schedules, and entering the workforce. You see a drop off there.
My church attendance at my days at Baylor is like I'm going to a Baptist school, God. Isn't that the same thing?
You have chapel, right?
Yeah,
you have to attend chapel sometimes.
Yeah, right. That kind of thing.
But then what you see is whenever those people get into their late 20s, early 30s, church attendance actually ticks up a bit because they start having children. They want to have that same experience for their kids that they had and have some kind of moral grounding. And so you actually see a really big fall off in the empty nester category. And so
they've done their duty. Now I can sleep in on Sundays or go golf.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, you see the trend go either way. So some people, if they continue in church, their weekly attendance will usually tick up. And so, but those who don't, they just eventually fade away.
Well, what keeps me coming to church, besides the quality preaching you give, Sam.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Yeah, whenever I get the chance.
Yeah. And Chris, and
Chris does a great job.
That no kidding, that's all true. But what really is motivating me is I have a really good small group.
Yes.
And they're my friends. They're close. That we've been through a lot, all of us. And my father-in-law would always say, "There's no bad reason to go to church. If you go to church because you want to meet girls, fine. If you have to go to church to play on the softball team, fine. Just get in the door and we'll take care of the rest," kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And
just start the practice.
Yeah. And so
make it a habit.
I promise you, though, this is well before your dad would know these guys, but back in the 2000s and late 90s, 2000s, there was a group of guys younger than me by a few years that all came to know the Lord through softball. And you think, softball? What has that got to do with anything?
Yeah.
Well, they had to go because they want to play softball. And they started going to church, and they started hearing the message. And their wives, were very helpful and persuaded them as well. But, I mean, there's a whole group of these guys. Some are still with us. Some moved on.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing, moved out of town, moved to other states. But it just, something like that, you wouldn't think is softball as a evangelizing tool, but it worked for them.
We've got a pickleball group on Monday nights.
Yeah, right. And when I was in high school, junior high and high school, primarily high school, what kept me going to church was my youth group. Right?
Yeah.
I had some really close friends, still do. I see them. I see one of them fairly often, and I see the other 3 or 4 about once a quarter, and we message and such. And and that kind of experience, I think, of some of these people are lacking. They don't have that connection. I don't know if this is a true statement, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think people, when they go to church, they expect to have like the heavens open up and choirs singing at every experience. Really, church is, some Sundays you go and okay, that was great. And some is like, well, I should have paid better attention or whatever.
Yeah.
Or the sermon was fine, whatever. But I'm trying to say this the right way. If you don't involve yourself in the church, you're not going to get the kind of experience that you think you should be getting from church.
Yes.
That's kind of what I meant to say.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the thing with worship preference is a good example of this. We have people who are seeking after an experience that is catered to them. And I think that's fine. I mean, if you're looking for a great worship, like you said, if that gets you in the door, that's great. Like if you are looking for somebody who can sing really well and play guitar great, and you have a great experience during worship, it's almost like a concert for you, and that gets you in the door, awesome. I mean, let me reset this real quick. I had 2 phone calls last week. There's a guy, I won't use their names, but he was in his mid-50s. His wife recently passed away. Hasn't been to church in a long time, but he believes in Jesus. And I mean, I was on the phone with him for probably 20, 25 minutes, and the majority of that time he was crying and talking about how he doesn't feel like he has much hope and how there's no more joy in life.
Well, I could see that, obviously,
Yeah, I mean, I felt for him. And I brought up that question, like he believes in Jesus and he just hasn't been to church in a really, really long time. And I knew that, man, if he had just been here, if he had been in your small group or somebody else's and he had a community of people around him, that whenever this did happen, that he wasn't walking through it alone. Oh, it would completely change that.
In our small group, we've had 2 people pass away in the last 6 years. You know them both. And also we had a former member that he and his wife moved to Arkansas, and she passed away about 2 years ago. Yeah. And he still had friends in that group. And so there, and I've been talking about the things I went through with my father, and with now going through with my mother, and they've been there for me for that. Okay, and so that's the value of the church.
Yeah,
That's the real church. I mean, going here in a sermon is great and necessary, but all that. But the real churching, if that's a word, comes from that.
yeah,
And the support they get, and Robin had a couple of health issues that were minor, it turns out, but it's still, they're there with the food and the prayers and the whatever, what can we do for you? Do you need something done? And that, need your yard mowed, whatever else. And so that's, I think a lot of people, they're missing that in their lives. And that's why we have such tremendous levels of depression and social anxiety, or other kind of emotional and mental conditions. I do now. I'm not going to say if you're have chemical bipolar issues that you're going to pray your way from that, because there are medical things.
Yeah, we've
Okay.
also broadened the definition of some mental illnesses, and
Right,
things like
yeah,
that, and some disorders, and
You see, but in my day, if you were suffering from depression, it's because you didn't pray enough, and I think most of us now would say there's more to it than that.
yeah,
There's more to it than just your spiritual condition. There may be some sort of imbalance
could
or
be, yeah,
something like that. But I just remember when I was your age, if you were bipolar, you were just a pain in the rump. You weren't having real issues, and there's something wrong with you.
Right.
And now I think we understand our condition better. Would prayer help? Sure, it would, but it's not like in replacement of other therapies.
yeah.
You know,
I mean, there's the security of knowing, like, if anything bad happens, like, I have such a great community around me that, like, of course, like, if something tragic happens in my life, like, it's going to hurt. And I'll experience the pain of that, and I'll have to walk through it. But I know that I have a church behind me that loves me, that's going to support me, that is going to, they're going to show up at my door and bring meals, and they're going to take care of me.
Well, and
I won't have to walk through it alone.
right. And I would also say that we at First Baptist have promises.
Yeah.
And it's not just a food pantry; they have counseling, and I've talked to a couple of people about it, and they're like reluctant because they think the first thing to do is, okay, open your Bibles to 1 Thessalonians. No, it's not.
Yeah.
No, it's not that kind of counseling. You could bring the scripture in as much as you want, but they're not going to bring it in unless you do. All right.
Yeah. They will do Christian counseling there.
Yeah, they
yes.
will do
Yes.
Christian counseling, absolutely. But if you go there and I got these problems, they'll talk about those problems. And now it's in a Christian atmosphere and maybe from a Christian perspective, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not like, well, okay, well, you did these things and you deserve it because you sinned. So here, read these scriptures.
It's going to be the same cognitive behavioral therapy that you would receive anywhere else. Like,
Well, they're all licensed by the state.
Yeah.
I did it with David Couch and I sure hated to see him move away, but it did.
Yeah.
He had to go for his family's sake, take care of family. But the counseling that people receive from promises is legitimate counseling, and I remember sitting with David, and we would talk about what was bothering me more than just, well, here's what you need to rectify it.
Yeah.
And here's two scriptures, and call me afterwards. So I would, if you're out there and mental issue is a real thing, I would say promises is a good place to do it, because you do it in an atmosphere in which you could be comfortable expressing your faith and even questions about faith, because we sure question why. Gosh, there's so many questions. I always wonder if when it's my turn to get my reward, as they say, I'm going to have a lot of questions for God. Okay, God, mosquitoes, really?
Yeah. Why? Malaria?
Yeah. But or would we be so happy that we don't even know about it or care about it anymore? I don't know. Speaking of which, we before we jump off, we need to talk about one other thing, kind of a separate thing, our Burleson Opportunity Fund.
Yes.
Have
we got a golf tournament coming up?
Yes, right. Because you are a big wheel in that.
Yeah, vice president this year.
Yes.
Yeah, very happy to serve the community in that capacity.
Yeah. Well, and we need to raise money, obviously, for these scholarships, and it's getting more expensive, and that's the way it is, and the demand is there. And COVID did a number on all of us. And I talked to other nonprofit groups. It took a long time, if still not, hadn't recovered from that.
Yeah, still recovering from that,
because they had all that expense without any revenue.
Yeah.
And so, and now I'm not trying to imply that we're going broke. Okay, good. So don't go with that.
No, we just have big goals. Like
We have big goals,
We want
is a
to
good
be
way to
able
put it.
to
Yeah.
send more kids to. I mean, the opportunity fund for me is so near and dear to my heart because I was one of the kids that needed an opportunity. I needed somebody to stand in the gap for me. And according to like the way things have been done before, like next year I will be taking over as the chair of the Burleson Opportunity Fund. And like my hope is that we send more students than we ever have before to higher education.
It's big. It is big goals. So I don't want Daniel Pinto to get all worked up. We're not going broke. We just have big goals.
Yeah.
And big needs.
Yeah.
And so
that's why we're doing this golf tournament.
Yeah.
Like we want to be able to add more to what we're doing right now. And we have a community that I believe wants to support this. They've seen the value of it. I mean, I'm a living example of whenever you attend a university or a college in your hometown, that you come back and you invest in that community. And so that's why I'm doing all this.
Well, and as a former Hill teacher, I taught from 2003 to 2020. Well, the Christmas was 24. Yeah. Gosh, I can't even count the number of BOF kids, particularly when I had day classes. When I left the BHS, retired from BISD, I started doing some classes during the day for Hill. And I would say half of those kids were BOF kids. And then at night, I'd say maybe about a quarter of them were. The rest of them were, working adults and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, it was a real blessing. And I've had parents come up to me and, a couple even emotional about it because how much money and time it saved. And now we have, the early college program. We've always, not always, but for the last 25 years or so, we had dual enrollment programs. We had dual enrollment when I first went to BHS back in 1990, but it was only 2 classes and it was through Texas Wesleyan. It was only like a calculus class and an advanced English class. Now you have all this. But, we need sponsors. We need donations. We need participation. It's $500 for a tent sponsor. It's $5,000 for a banner sponsor. I believe we're working on a title sponsor. Don't we have that one nailed down?
I don't think so. Not yet.
Oh, I know we're talking to a group.
We've talked to a few people who are interested, but if somebody watching right now wants to grab it, it's up for grabs. Yeah. So go for it.
$800 per team or $200 for an individual. So if you don't have a team, just sign up at the QR code and you can, join a team, and it's going to be fun. It's over at Hidden Creek on May 1st at 9 o'clock, and it's going to be a best ball. You know what that is, right?
Yeah, 4-man scramble, play best ball. That's the only way I can.
That's the only way I could play it.
Yeah.
I was always the D player on the squad. So
I'll find the best person at the church to play with. And get them on my team. And
his name is John Rutledge.
Oh, John Rutledge, really?
Boy, is he good.
Is he better than Pearson Farnell?
I haven't played with him, but I back in the day, I played 2 or 3 of these best ball scrambles for other events for the church. We raised money for health care costs for a couple of our members back in the day. And I was on John's team, and he always bailed me out.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like we need to get a Gardner Life Group team for the golf tournament.
I'll ask him. I'll ask him. And Josh, do you golf?
I want to more.
You've golfed before, huh?
I've tried to golf before.
You've swung a club.
And then gave up after like 3 hours.
Oh, okay, fine. You're a lot of help.
Sorry.
All right. Anyway, we do have a couple more nonprofit things coming up. I'm going to have Lisa Boltinghouse of the Center for ASD coming on pretty soon with the Light Up the Night. You were heading that direction. She's going to be on the show in about 2 weeks. They talk about she and Miranda, her social media evangelist. I don't know what you would call her. I know that coming in about 6 weeks, I think, we're going to have the Walk for Life for the Next Step Women's Center. That's always a big thing. I know
they've been doing that for a while.
Yeah, I think May 2nd we're going to have. It's either the 2nd or the 9th, but I think it's May 2nd. We're going to have the City on the Hill with Crazy Eights.
Nice.
So there's spring is a busy time for all this. On Thursday, a little plug, I'm going to have Amber Case and Kelly Alexander from Harvest House here.
You're going to be doing karaoke? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, they're going to do their favorite Broadway songs.
Oh, there we go. Nice.
And we're going to have a special camera, so if Kelly wants to, get on the table and, dance to, welcome to Cabaret, old friends, or whatever, Yeah, I don't know if Kelly will do that. But anyway, it's going to be fun. I saw Amber at the showcase, and she's just a really nice person, really good person.
Awesome.
Good person and a great story. I don't know, you probably heard it, but she has really been through it, and she's come out the other side.
Wow.
Yeah. All right, Josh. I guess
Yes,
we'll
sir.
see you Thursday. I hope.
Absolutely.
And you got a busy week coming up.
We do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, good. Before we leave, I got a couple of scheduling things, so to make sure we're clear on. Okay. Well, you got any last words you want to give us, Sam?
Yeah, thank you. It was great being here today.
Yeah,
Appreciate the
you
conversation.
enjoy these kind of
Yeah,
conversations,
I
don't
do.
you?
I do. Yeah.
Well,
You should hear the offline ones. They're
No,
better.
yeah. Or not the off-color ones, the offline
the
ones.
offline ones, yeah.
Well, we're going to have you on again, I bet, for the BOF before
Oh, I'm
May
sure.
1st. I'll
Yeah.
probably get Daniel here. We'll probably get, I don't know, get Patsy.
Let's get
Dumas.
Ricky. Let's get Ricky Estes here.
Yeah, he's your buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get
I
Ricky
can
here.
convince him to come on.
Okay,
Yeah.
we have room for 3, and so we come and talk about it. And I bet, and Ricky has some stories too, doesn't he?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he did not grow up with the spoon in his mouth kind of thing.
No,
right? He was,
no, absolutely not.
Yeah, so he could tell you about the value of Harvest House because he's done some promotional work for them in the past.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I got to go. And
Me
so do
too.
you. All right.
Yeah.
All right, Josh, we'll see you. See you all on Thursday, guys.